Oh, I don't know if I'm, see, am I live yet? Oh yeah, I'm live, okay. 0 watching, I haven't said anything yet of value, so that's good. Put that up there. Let's see here. Where is that old flute? I guess it's like it's blowing my horn, so. My little horn. My little horn toy. Well, that doesn't sound too good. see there's something in the chat there. Satan's Bells. What is your opinion on Lovecraft, Necronomicon, and Othellumios? I don't know what that is. You have to. I'm not going to be able to investigate it right now, so I can't give an opinion on it. But if it's Lovecraft and it's necromancy, is that love with the dead? Is that what that is? That's what I would guess from those words, as a myth, as a cult. Which, T said something about that, actually, like kind of related. I gotta find it though exactly so I don't misrepresent her, but let me see if I can do that. Where am I gonna find that little piece? If you want to stay around for it, that's your business, of course. Well, she was talking about burning it out. Burning out our sexuality. Burning out our, like in other words, doing it so much so that we get it out of our system. And then we can maybe go on to other things. That there are, that beyond that passion is working, night and day and basically looking to get fulfilled sexually once in a while or whatever our pattern is. Which there's nothing wrong with. It's just it's just part of the human kingdom to be an option, as I understand it from T and Do. And a lot of times the lessons that we get from being sexually active, is, end up, relationships, and it's all good. It's all good for learning. It's all building ourselves, to knowing what we want, what we don't want, what kind of relationships are toxic to us, what kind of relationships are, are going to drag us down all the time, and which ones will boost us up all the time, but or drag us down for the wrong reasons, like at a competition or possessions or possessiveness, jealousies, expectations of one another. Anyway, let me get on to the next. Okay, I'll see if you had any response here. Look at the chat room. Cthulhu is the beast with tentacles. Okay. Is that the 7 heads and the 10 horns? Is it bad to watch horror movies and read occult books? No, of course not. No, it's not bad. There's nothing bad about that. Well, it's not like it. It's just like, it's anything else. Like Tiendo said, there was running past to the top of the mountain. And it's not something that we did in the classroom. We didn't watch any horror movies. I think they would have been seen as primitive. And we knew that humans were slaughtering each other. So in parts of the world all the time, and that was considered also predatory, animalistic behavior, which of course humans are animals. They're, mammals, right? So it's all perfectly natural, but it also can be, I don't know if it can be outgrown or not. I don't know if sometimes the programming is so strong that certain strains they kind of eat themselves, like the evil taking out the evil, canceling each other out. So the victims are the predators of others, so it works that way, but until you get to the mammals that are not, I'm not trying to be scientific here in the definition of mammals exactly, because I believe felines are not technically mammals, but they have mammary glands, I believe, so for their young, so I would consider them mammals. But as maybe then the whales would be too, because they have that too. Maybe all of them do. So that's the animal kingdom, okay? That's what it's based on, I guess. Stupid me, So I keep seeing layers of this, and sometimes it just kind of like makes me think of it in a different way. That's interesting. But instead of rambling on, that's all I got to say about the books. I actually wanted to talk about something today, and as long as there's one person in the chat room, and it says 2 watching, so I'll go on with it, is how in 1980, you know what I didn't do? I didn't invite my friends from my Sawyer Heaven's Gate Facebook page. I got to do that before I do anything else. I'm kind of slow sometimes. Not usually when I'm playing music. How come it didn't show up correctly on the screen as a link? Well, I guess it would link, it'll link there. All right. All right, so I'm back at this chat, and I guess I probably lost some people. No, one person came into it. So if you're here because you have been here before, then there's nothing to update you on. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to keep watching the chat room. And I'll do that right now since I see a new person in there. M. Paterm Noster. Okay. Hey Sawyer, did the UFO ever speak about how to quit alcohol? Did the UFO ever speak? That would be like saying, did the bus take you to the treatment center? But the idea is, I got the intention, brother or sister or in between. Let's see. Yeah, so Tiendo did actually not pattern so much, but they thought of the 12-step program as really beneficial, to people, and were stimulated by the next level, by their presence. They didn't say that. They didn't tell us things that they saw in the world and say, that's happening because of us. No, they didn't ever say that kind of stuff. Well, they did say, yes, they did. I didn't say it that way for sure. The way I was saying it, kind of snotty. No, they would say that because the next level was here, and there was more light on this whole planet, and I can go on and on and on. So I'm correcting myself big time there. But anyway, so and the way they showed that was with starting a little program. We had like a little name of an organization was Anonymous Sexaholics Celibate Church, I think is what it was called. Or maybe it was celibate came first now. Ask. A-S. Yeah. Yeah, celibate church. Right, that's the way it was. And as I get older, I can see that, I got some of the memories, and the other ones I kind of drifting off a little bit, if I don't keep on researching them, getting back into them. I guess it's maybe the way, gosh, if I get to that point to where I don't know where I am, I need to show me where the pill cabinet is. So that's all I'll say about that, I guess. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You're right. You're absolutely right. I appreciate that. I won't say your name. So what is your opinion on David Icke and his theories about Illuminati and reptilians? Well, I liked a lot of what he said. I felt like it, in terms of the reptilians controlling the world leaders, because Tiendo felt like the Luciferian space alien fallen angels were all, which they would just like sometimes just say the lower forces of the planet, and that would include them and the scarlet world, were in control of the individuals that brought them the most response from the most people and the most money in order to forward their programs. And so of course, everything was built in a pyramid. So these souls that had experienced in the past in a civilization where they came from, I think on Earth, I'm not sure though, got their start in the training program that takes souls into the next level, and they broke away from that, just like individuals dropped out of Tiendo's classroom, and it's the equivalent of that, I believe. And so maybe I said enough about that, but maybe I didn't make the point though. I don't know. Oh yeah, we're talking about the reptilians. Okay, but I forget what his view is on this, so I can't really comment in terms of what he believes or not. I mean, I know that I don't agree with what I saw about it. I think he was one of the individuals that. No, let me stay on topic instead of spending all that time talking about David Icke. you're witnessing the, my battle in my head, which is, this guy's schizophrenic. He's like, well, that's part of Tiendo's teachings, that we all are actually schizophrenic. In other words, there's, if we can picture that there's a reality to the spirit leaving the body at death, and that it continues to exist in electromagnetic frequencies within the electromagnetic structure of the Earth, in the atmosphere, mostly in the atmosphere of the Earth, the close atmosphere, then all the dead are actually around us all the time, unless they're someplace in that structure that they believed they were going to go to in that structure, like Eckankar taught. Then when they died, they might go to Eckankar, because you get what you believe, and according to Tiendo. So when you die, and believe is also what you do. It's equivalent. Even if it's contrary to your belief, or or far afield from it, or multiplicity, because it is. A lot of our beliefs are, who knows what it is exactly. If you get, it's hard to sum up, but that's what Tiendo ended up doing by explaining everything in more scientific terminology, because the next level really is a scientific. They create it's experiments, is what Tiendo called it. And they said the only variables in the experiments are the responses of the subjects of the experiments, and that's the minerals and the plants and the animals and the humans that are the life forms in the experiment. And they're not doing an experiment because they want something, they want the gold, or although they can benefit from some of that sometimes. But they're more likely to put gold on the planet, or to help the planet's systems develop gold somehow, like the way diamonds come from carbon compression, according to the science that I understand. And so the next level can do that, but anyway, I got off the track, I think, with what I was talking about there. But back to the reptilians, though, you can understand, when I first started to think about this 15 years ago, because after I left the group, we didn't talk about the reptilians in the group that much. I mean, a little bit. There was a little talk about it. And Doe at one point said something about they were wearing suits. I think it was more referring to the ones that look like those insects, with the big bulging eyes, and those were like suits. And then I got some evidence of that. I think maybe it was from David Icke, actually, that when he had his contact with what was thought to be a space alien, he said the space alien said, if I remember correctly, that he was wearing a suit, or she was wearing a suit. I don't know what pronoun they used, but so that was like a little verification of what T and Do were teaching that too, that the human bodies were suits to wear. And they compared the next level bodies with putting on a biological suit, being a humanoid vehicle that is grown on a vine, like a plant is, so it has like an umbilical cord to it that grows to adulthood, is biological, and it has facilities to change its vibrations, so that the part of the light spectrum that we see isn't capable of seeing them. And then they have the capability through their mind to change it so that we can see them. And they know when we can and they know the range to go to. And so they have tasks to work among us. And they also have physical vehicles that can even be grown to be a spacecraft that could, for instance, do a task of taking a water supply, perhaps, to another planet. Tiendo didn't say that, but what they said was that a next level task on a separate occasion, they talked about how a next level task could be assigning a crew a task to take water to another planet and dump it somewhere on another planet. And that you would continue to do that task until you got instructions to not do that task. And the next level would assume that you would be doing that task. And the older members of the next level are very attentive to the tasks they give out. So they keep track of, they have a reporting system and they have a way to get in touch with them the whole time. And but you're not watched all the time at all. And you're allowed to do things that you have to make your own decisions about. So when you pick up the phone, the older member is not necessarily going to respond. Or the older member might respond, have a response, but decide to help you with the response in another way. Who knows? But by something they might have to do through another avenue on another crew that they might have on the planet. So so Tiendo created a movie about that process of and working with the human kingdom, all the human that were responding to their mind being present, and their mind being present is what brings about the Renaissance. The Renaissance in art and everything, invention, everything, is the presence of the next level's kingdom. Because Jesus didn't say that he was coming back alone. He said he was coming back with his kingdom. I think in Matthew 24. And I was going to go through Matthew 24 a little bit, but maybe I'll just... I don't know if there's anything else about David Icke that rings a bell, because I do like David Icke's connections he made genetically to the Bush family, and the Clintons, and Obama, and like Obama was like some 16th cousin to the same strain that the others were from, which is a pretty probably thick and broad branch, but. Still, I suspected it anyway when I came upon the information that led me to believe that G.W. Bush was the second horse in the opening of the second seal of the Book of Revelations, chapter 6, and which was I guess verse 3 out of chapter 6, where it starts to talk about the red horse, which I ended up going to read and really studying the hell out of it, and it came up with ruddy, and as if like red in the face, which was the definition of Adam, actually. So that's like showing that Bush came from the strain that Adam was on, which would have been Noah and the rest. I know people think a lot of that's hilarious to think that it was true, but I don't know why. Gosh, we've seen so many things that people thought were hilarious and ended up to be multiple times more true than they could have imagined. Space travel, right? Everything else. Of course, that's all imaginary too. We can have the technology for it, but we can't do it. totally illogical. But people, Tiendo taught that that sexuality actually reduces your common sense. The more you're involved in it, the more you're addicted to it. So that's why I had to be caught like a fish. Because someone that's addicted to being a fish, because it's natural for them to be a fish, is the only way you're gonna be able to advance that fish to a new possibilities, to identifying a new something that's more powerful than you and beyond your imagination, is by catching you out of the sea. And then, who knows, you can even look at it like database-wise, that fish comes out of the water and is dying and sees human faces. And then they die. Doesn't matter how fast they die. They registered that human face as being an enemy, I guess, right? And then, so you take that spirit and but it also teaches them that there's something more evolved in them that has more that they don't have the capacity to compute was a threat to them. I think that's the way they think. I don't think, I don't know. I mean, some of the advanced, the mammals, I think, of the kingdom, I don't know what kind of minds could be grown in those minds. I don't think it's an accident that Tiendo gave the example of a task in the next level being to take water to a planet. And then at another time, totally different from that time, even many years apart, Doe said, talked about how the next level can grow a vehicle that is transport, is a spacecraft. And I already knew that spacecrafts could be of any size, that we can conceive of, even as large as a planet. Well, maybe not as large as a planet. I don't know exactly if they would be considered a spacecraft to where they had the same capacity as other spacecrafts, because they even said that they have spacecrafts that are totally remote controlled, that go close to the sun. And we had a lot of signs in the sun, I don't know if anybody pays attention to any of that, and all the satellites that are trained on the sun, SDO, and I think there's a couple more, maybe, who knows how many. And that's what the picture is on my Blog Talk Radio, not Blog Talk Radio, on my YouTube channel page is, let me see if I can go to that for a second here. I think I would remember my own YouTube channel page. No, I can't see that page right now. I'm not going to bother with that. Let's get back to put that up there for whatever it's worth. Wow, I actually got a connection that's a little faster this time. Let me go back to the chat room for a second here. Bible forbids magic, but you are using some kind of magic. Like me, you get that reality can be manipulated with power of will. If you take psychedelics like DMT, you can have deep spiritual experiences. Yes, I agree with that you can have deep spiritual experiences, and I have tried that many times before I met Tiendo. And I did have what I believed were deep spiritual experiences, even that I related to in the, I'll tell you an experience I had. It was like right after, it was either, the the year I was graduating high school, or maybe the year before that, anyway, it might have been senior year, I would go to the planting fields, Arboretum, which was on Long Island. And it was, it was a garden center. And they had big fields that were very well groomed with grassy fields and big old trees, and weeping willows sometimes. And, really nice environment. And I remember I used to go there with my friend and we'd drop acid or mescaline or smoke hash or marijuana, do it all. And not that I did that much of all those things combined. I was somewhat of a teetotaler compared to other people. And anyway, so we would go there, during the daylight and play frisbee, and it was a lot of, fun, and sit under the, And so one time when I went there, we used to carry our Bibles when we went there, and we'd walk barefoot. So we were like all about Jesus somehow. And this was with a Jew, a Jewish guy who was a year older than I was. So he was like about 17 at that point, or 18. And the other guy was maybe a year younger than I was, or a couple. And and he used to drop a lot more acid. I mean, and he was kind of crazy. And when I met him long before that, since I'm giving you a little story, hints on the story, he took a knife to my throat one time, laughing as if he was, oh, look what I could do. And I treated it like a joke in a sense, but I wasn't sure exactly when I left that, and I wanted him out of that house right away, and so I kind of disconnected from him right away. Talk about keeping toxic people away from you. Anyway, but when I was having that, when I was like walking through, we used to walk on the rocks, and we wouldn't ever read the Bible. So that was weird, wasn't it? Three guys with these different temperaments and stuff, and belief systems, or not lack of belief systems, whatever they were. And I mean, I was exploring at that point. I was exploring a little bit, with the Maharishi, Mahesh Yogi, and Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, very tiny bit. I couldn't really get into that at all. Or maybe it was the Egyptian Book of the Dead that I couldn't get into at all. And a little bit of Jesus scriptures, but not much. I didn't study the Revelations at all. But I'm sorry I'm getting off on these other things, but I might as well put it down here because, one day maybe this would be useful to evaluate how crazy I was. And not that I'm concerned about that, but I'm just doing this because it's my experience, and I think it's a valuable experience. Because T and Do, I know who they are. And so to me, anything that I can say that can be a little bit of more information that shows how real they were, and how, talking about a metamorphosis. And then ended up, after I left the group, I learned that the word metamorpho was the word for transfiguration. And when Jesus went onto the mountain for the what's called the Transfiguration with his three disciples, James and John and Peter, that he took, the three disciples. So, yeah, and so, and how that described actually the process that Jesus talked about as putting a seed in the ground. So the earth is the ground, and the human kingdom is part of the earth because it subsists on the ground. And it thrives all its nourishment from the ground. Then, so the programming goes in there that that seed can grow when it's fertilized, because the seed is the programming from the next level, which programming not like it's a forced thing, but the programming is a description of reality that comes with it. Okay, so and words is the best expression of it for us, and the language, and I mean the ideas and the thoughts, of course, are the words. The words are the descriptions of the thoughts, and so I understand that. Sometimes I just want to show you that I understand it. I think because I know I'm so confusing about the way I come to say things. I can't imagine anybody benefiting from it, but. But maybe the keywords, I maybe put them in some water that's worthwhile. Anyway, so that's the other voice, comes in there. It's self-evaluating. That's what you do when you open yourself up to. A little marijuana helps with that, I think. Although I believe it does some good things for, but what I was actually getting to was that the spirit world is the discarnate world that T and Do were teaching, and that we are each as vehicles, these physical vehicles with our minds growing in them and outside of them. Because it's an emanation of that's like surrounding everything. That the next level can detect when it's changing in its frequency by how much of the next level's mind that they provide is being received by that thirsty mind, the mind that's seeking. And so when they see that, then they can give a little more fertilizer in that direction, even individually, to each of us. And they can even give you, a gift of further recognition to help you go a little further in the search to. And I forgot how I got into that, but I was talking about the discarnates, so I did hold on to that. I'm not too much of a basket case, but because we were talking about the spirit world before, and magic is part of that, because the magic is the manipulation of the spirit world to try to make it do what you want to do. And T and Do taught that the space alien souls, who are filled with spirit from the human kingdom and a mix of what's in their soul pocket, that's from the next level. So the experiences of being in the next level are still there, although their translation of things changes as it comes out of use. So you lose it, and Jesus taught this. So you lose the recognition, and that's why going against the next level is the only blasphemy that's not forgiven. It's not forgiven because you become something that's impossible to change the course of. Because it's designed as a program to, then the only thing that it becomes nothing of value except just a version of what it went through to get to that point, as an overview. I believe that's the kind of picture I have of it. I hope that some of that was from T and Do's mind, but it's like it's all. I don't claim what I'm saying is 100% accurate. And T and Do never claimed. Well, T and Do would say sometimes that they would be talking about a subject for a while, and then they would say, we're not claiming that this is the most accurate interpretation. But it works for now, is what they would say. It works for your thinking now, because we all need to be taken in our thinking a step at a time. And that's why it's so good about the internet, is it allows you to search through it. So the actual beast of the technology is what actually helps us rise above the technology, to see that the technology is just one part of the picture of reality, which we know theoretically, but all the communication that's involved with that technology is what shapes the flesh. Because the technology extends to the spirit world, and that all shapes the flesh too, because Tiendo taught that the spirits, when we take them in, we're like timeshare. It's like our vehicles are like timeshare computer systems that are, and the only thing that we are actually is what we decide to let in and allow to stay in the programming. That all those spirits that are discarnate information modules, they're coming closer to us, and they're drawn to us because they want to experience the same sensations that they experienced when they were in a physical vehicle, in a physical body, in a denser physical body, even though they're not of any really density. Well, Tiendo called them etheric. I don't know if how many particles they're combined with, but I don't know enough about it. Well, I guess it's particles, because look at what light can do, right? What force can do as it travels through space and time. I don't know. Tiendo didn't talk about that I can remember anything. They only gave clues of things most of the time, except for the overcoming process. And they talked in depth about that, because that's why they were there, to take souls through their next stage. Nobody else was really meant to believe what they were believing in the very beginning, because like Doe said, if everybody at the same time could comprehend the reality that they were teaching at the same time, then it would deplete the human kingdom, and then the human kingdom would not be able to feed the next level with fruit in terms of human vehicles that were eager for growth, that were thirsting for growth, that had begun to outgrow remaining in the human kingdom, which takes place during the first 6 grades in school. And so the whole planet is organized in such a way that there's like 12 grades in school. And according to Tiendo. And so during the first 6 grades, you're becoming the best human spirit you can become. And each lifetime, that's why they talk about it as reincarnation, but that's got distorted. So it actually doesn't mean what's being taught in the Eastern religions, in the modern Eastern religion translations. That the same soul isn't the only soul that exists. And a spirit isn't the same as a soul. You can be outside your physical vehicle as a discarnate, and you're not a soul. And those spirits don't ever come back, because they never went anywhere after they died. They stayed right where they were to continue to experience the human kingdom through that family or strain that they were experiencing it before they died. Because unless they believe something else other than whatever that strain was going towards. Let's say they believed, they met somebody from another strain, and they ended up going into philosophy, okay, or whatever, or just wondering about the stars, and you're trying to invent something to, to make a prism and shine light on something, to try to produce heat, and, learn how to use the elements. Those kind of things would be like, the first things to give to the mammalian human creatures. But the next level, Tindo said that the next level removed the link, or the links, in between, so that the scientists couldn't figure out how to actually make the step to being led more by thinking than by their just their need to survive, I guess, or their immediate need to survive. You're not being satisfied with that. And that's what happens. The next level can stimulate that not being satisfied feeling and as fertilizer. And sometimes that happens by people in our family dying, by divorces, by things going terribly wrong, by losing our fortune. And that opens another door to people that have to try to make a positive out of it. Like this person was talking about today, who was the head of that big shoe company on I think on NPR, or I heard, who went to jail. He got kind of went along with schemes that he knew were making money on false pretenses, and got rich, and then was given 15 months in jail in some kind of dormitory. That was the only thing about it was loneliness. That was the worst part about it. But he read a lot, and so it changed his life. Got off of alcohol, and then he went on to bring his company to make more billions of dollars. And he said right along the way, he said he was addicted to a drug called wealth, money. And I thought that was a good example of how Jesus said that you can make yourself into two different gods. You can only have one of two masters that you're working towards. It's either the next level above human, the kingdom of God, the level of the kingdom in the literal heavens throughout outer space, who created the planets and the life forms. But to be more accurate, I should say, who created the earth and all its life forms. Because the kingdom is a many-membered kingdom, and so who knows how many other projects there are. We're creating earths and kingdoms, other life forms, and so we're not one of the only ones. We're one of many. Because Tiendo said that there was a chief of chiefs, and that T was later on, many years later, he said that that T was the chief administrator of the earth. And that's where Revelation 12:1 comes in, which I talked about that before, and it's on my YouTube videos if anybody wants to go look at it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that now, but I try to go through almost every keyword in each verse, and it can get very tedious, but it's the process. It's all a process, and what I was going to say before about something is that there's many interpretations of everything, and that the Christians, like when we were studying the Christians in the 1990s by satellite dish, I realized where I dropped my ball on a little story I was telling about being coming to that vision that I had while I was on LSD or some mescaline or whatever it was. I'll go back to that. What the heck? I should get back to closer to the things that I'm talking about that were magical. And which I did have a lot of magical experiences after I left the group, and then a lot of dreams, and different kinds of dreams. and even thinking I was seeing spirits in the corners of the room, even masturbating, you know, and like laughing at me. It was like, or maybe they were just having such a good time that, you know, it looked like to me that they were laughing at me. And then I had another one when, which has a little story with it, that I met this guy who played guitar, and he was, he lived nearby, and so I started playing with him, and I met his wife, and she took an interest to my story about Heaven's Gate a little bit, and she had been editor in her professional upbringing or career. I don't know how much she did of it, but and so she, I think, suggested that she might be somebody that could edit my book, because I was talking at the time about writing a book. Or maybe I was in process of writing it. You know, I went through a couple overhauls. And so I ended up and I won't deny that she was an attractive woman, and but I hadn't been apart from my wife, my partner, who of 17 years, with anybody. So anyway, but I played music with my friend's son, who played bass, and he was at my party for a party, and we didn't do any hallucinatory things then. I forgot. I got into the wrong story when I went in this direction of the more current experience. But that tape is on some of my first videos that I made. I made like 4 of them, 3 or 4, that I used some of the music we did then, and my other music that I was a part of, and some of my solo stuff a little bit in those first 4 videos where I just put words on the screen. Many years ago, I guess, at this point. I don't know how long ago it was, but maybe 10 years. Anyway, so in this dream, or I woke up, I was in bed with my partner, and in the dream, what I saw was, well, I woke up, I was on my stomach, which I was taught by Tiendo not to do, because of how it stimulates the vehicle sexuality. Anyway, but this is after I left the group, 1995, 6, no, 7, 8, no, 2002 maybe, around, and so see, now I just got that voice. Get on with it. Get on with it. Now that might be the next level, saying get on with it. Get on with it, because they send me thoughts too. I think ideas, not thoughts, but ideas. Not like programming and saying you must get on with it. I can continue to ramble on in some direction if I want to. I've got the choice, and that's what Tiendo always gave us too. But if we took the choice that showed that we didn't want to be in the classroom, then they would see if we wanted to be helped to look at things differently in order to change our behaviors so that we could stay in the classroom, or we could leave. And so And they had different ways of saying that, which, in doing that, that were filters. And I don't know if anybody wants to hear about those filters, but I can get back into the mystery, the magic part. So anyway, so the way I see this is I woke up, I was on my stomach, and I looked up in the air above me. And what I felt like I saw was a woman with long black flowing hair. I could see her from the waist up. She was naked, so her bosoms were showing. And her hair was like blowing in the wind. Okay? And she was laughing. And she was bobbling up and down, like, you know, she wasn't like standing still. And so I remember looking away from that because I couldn't believe my eyes, and then looking back and it was still there. And I thought I was awake. I thought that awakened me when that happened. Anyway, so then I learned later that she was kind of laughing at me, the woman that was in, and that, well, I don't know, I shouldn't put it that way, is that she was trying to prove me wrong, so that's why was the basis for her wanting to talk about editing my book. Because you couldn't be an editor and try to prove the person wrong. You wouldn't come up with the same interpretation. So that's why I took it as, I don't know if she was really laughing at me to mock me, though. I shouldn't say that. That might be the Luciferian spin on it. Because well, I'm not saying that was her. I don't think it was her. I think it was a spirit that was in association with her. Because we talked about how she had some ideas surrounding the name T. So that was, you know, interesting. And that came before, and we had a really good little thing there with the music, you know, doing a meditation thing. Anyway, and then I had another experience that happened. These three things happened with the spirits that were in the corners of the rooms that looked like little Etch-a-Sketch kind of things. You know, like you could barely make out the features that they, but you just got a feeling that you were seeing, and I'd be struggling to see them. You know, it's like, is that really there? Is that really there? And getting the vibration of them like laughing. And but I guess it was, you know. But the third one that happened, actually the laughing spirits were laughing. Is that right? I didn't make that connection before that they were both laughing. And but the other one that happened, actually, I think before the other two, before the woman, and then before the laughing spirits and the laughing woman, was the experience when I was sitting in my bed. I was sleeping downstairs, separate from my partner, because we were, I guess, actually, you know, the first reason for it was that my back was really hurting myself. My sciatica was catching up with me. We started in the group from trying to show off by carrying 2 big banana boxes full of books to the truck repeatedly to load it when we moved so often. But and so I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, and I woke up. I mean, actually, I felt like I woke up and I was sitting on the edge of my bed. The room was very dimly lit, like just maybe by some of the lights that were on, those little red lights that are on, like a strip, you know, electronic strip has, you know, that kind of light in a room. And I guess that's what might help it happen, to where I could see something that was darker in the room. Because what I thought I saw was an object that was shaped like a, if you took a 3 foot tall, maybe 2 foot tall, shape of a head and shoulders, and you draped a darker than a dark sheet over that shape, and then and that was like, that glided by me in 2 or 3 seconds. I mean, so if anybody can see my arms, it doesn't matter, but I should see it anyway. Here. Now, get faster than that. Don't get carried away with this, right? All right. All right. Anyway, so it glides by me, and I say glide because it didn't seem to have any up and down motion. It looked more like a smooth glide, and that I could see, as opposed to the laughing woman who was clearly, you know, bobbling. Anyway, so so I remember, like, kind of thinking, what was that? And I was sitting there and I was thinking, what was that? Because I turned to look at it. So I did look at it, you know, head on. In that it wasn't just out of the peripheral vision. I've had peripheral vision things many times happen, where I thought I saw something in the peripheral vision, and I turned and there was nothing there. You know, and I don't know, they might call that molecular, you know, generation, you know, but I didn't always have it. As a kid, I didn't have it. Well, of course, if you didn't have degeneration, maybe it was. It might be, not, you know, whatever they call that. But whatever. But you know, when I was first doing that tripping, I remember I used to see the trails. And I always wondered if that was really happening. There was really, you could see the energy that way. You know, with your hand. I'm not sitting in the right place to use my hands. You don't want to see my hands anyway, right? If I'm going to try to describe the motion of something, you might as well be able to see it. You can see it right in the video, right? You can see the trails. Yeah. Anyway, but maybe it opened me up for that. You know, maybe I needed that help. Maybe some people don't need that help to open them to it, or can be done in different ways. But because Tiendo believed that all the students were deposited with like the seed, like I was talking about before, in order to be able to recognize with the seed that has the programming with it of recognition of the next level's thinking. So that's the fish caught in the hook is the actual, the bait is the truth. It's actually reality. Because the next level knows what the complete reality is because they created everything. Nobody else does. Into any situation. What we see is not what is always true. Just like Tiano taught that the space aliens can make holograms. Like they compared it to Fatima, the Lady of Fatima, which they said was, they felt like was a hologram. And we're seeing more of that potential now. I think you'll see more and more of it growing, and with a lot of things that are growing, of course. But I was looking at today this thing about Mount St. Helens and how it was 1980, May 18th of 1980. And how the mountain, blew out the whole side of it. For miles around, the trees there were no trees. Well, I don't know I know there were, let's see, what did it say? I did actually try to take notes. But several miles away, there were no trees at all, and then there were several miles that the trees were just burned because they all fell into the water in the Spirit Lake that was completely engulfed by ash, miles away from where the first explosions happened. All the explosions. I mean, that's like a phenomenon there, and then there's the footage there. Anyway, but that happened to very near Yakima, Washington, because the first ash cloud went over Yakima in 1980, and kept on going east. And so I related this in my book, but I'm going through this stuff because I want it to be on video. Because if I go through the book of Revelations chapter 12, piece by piece, I was seeing that the wilderness, when it says in the book of Revelations that the woman, who I believe is representing T, in the female vehicle that the older member from the next level took, those older member took to do the task of waking up her son to his task, the one that was Jesus before that, and Elijah before that, and Moses before that, and Enoch before that, and Adam in the start of the experiment that was part of the human kingdom where there were other humanoids living before that, and even in a different civilization before that didn't look the same as this civilization. Though I don't know how many times the next level had joint civilizations growing up at the same time, because it looks like the United States was also a civilization that was based on the Egyptians and came through the Roman strain of the Egyptians. And that's why, and that would account, the Jews also would be in on that. And that's why the Indians look like they have a nose like Middle Easterners, and like the Israelis and the Arabs. I believe that's, and of course, they've seen, people don't believe anything anymore, but there's some things that I was aware of many years ago that, to when there wasn't such a effort to try to sow seeds of total confusion by telling you things, and then you find out that they weren't true at all. And but with the story about like the Grand Canyon and how they found like pyramids and what they thought were pyramids, I think from some of the satellite photographs, which they can see a lot of things with those satellites, and they can detect with infrared light things and other things, signatures of elements, so that they get gradient views of underneath the Earth. And so doing that, they can see the volcanoes that are underneath the sea, actually. I know a guy who's been doing all that. So I know the technology is possible. So it's not like any of this stuff is really science fiction anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. And I know I got off on something there again, and but I'm kind of glad, because it allows me to touch base into a whole different, in a lot of different directions that I think I can bring in experience when I say it, that Tiendo said. If I'm not saying that Tiendo said that, some of the time I can't do everything by do that, and at the same time, maybe I can try though. I can try though, because, the words spirit and mind are synonymous according to Tiendo. So let me see where I want to go back to. That dream, I guess, because what I ended up doing is walking down. I wondered if maybe it was the girls, because there were two. I have two daughters. One is my daughter from me, my younger daughter, and my other daughter is my first daughter was when I became part of like her second dad, when her mother captured me. I guess that's the way I'm going to put it, because at the time I wasn't really looking for a relationship. So when she was 4 years old, so she became my daughter. So I wondered if they were sleeping upstairs, because I was sleeping downstairs at this point. While my ex was sleeping not my ex, but she's my ex now, but was sleeping upstairs. Anyway, so I went to the bottom of the stairs, and I kind of looked up, because I could see to the top of the stairs to see if there was any lights on or anything. And it was odd that they would come downstairs to use the bathroom, which would have been the direction they would have been going if they were coming through my room to go to the bathroom that I use. Because the bathroom upstairs is fully usable by them at night. And they were never up that late. They'd go to school the next day. I don't know if it was a weekend or not, but even on weekends, they didn't get up late. They didn't stay up that late. Probably like 11 o'clock. Grace probably stayed up later, but... that was a nickname I used for her. Anyway, so I decided I was going to take a look and see what was going on. So I walked down the hallway towards the bathroom, and I think I went into the bathroom, and I kind of started to get a little afraid, and I looked behind the door. Now I'm already kind of like that kind of a mindset in a sense, but this has never happened to me before. I was afraid of the dark when I was a kid, I believe, and I always thought there was like somebody in my closet in my room, because there was hats on the top shelf, and then there were these trench coats, on the bottom shelf, and like a man would wear when he wore a suit, because my dad had to wear a suit a lot of times as a salesman. So that's where he kept his suits and stuff, and his bat and his stuff. Anyway, so it was like Anyway, but so, and so I kept on walking. I didn't see anything there. And I kept on walking. I went to the kitchen, and then I noticed that the door to the basement was open a little bit, about an inch or two. And that was unusual. It's not unheard of. It can be, if you don't make a point to close it, it will just stay in that position. But it's so rare that anybody goes down there. And I'm very, I close all the doors that aren't supposed to be open. For whatever sakes, the kids' sake, for the dog's sake. We didn't have a dog then, but we had a dog later. But I would have done it for a dog too. A dog that would fall down the stairs. Anyway, so the fact that it was open was like, whoa. And so I opened the door a little bit and said, I'm not going down there. And I was afraid of the basement when I was a kid. That's for sure. Even, like one side was like, where the oil burner was like, whoa, I don't like the vibe over there. It wasn't finished. But the side where I was, where I would go down and play, I was okay with, but as long as I had lights on, of course. Where I would try to make like I was going to be Mick Jagger. So when I began to look at that years later, I think that gave me something at the same time, because I believe what that was, and I could be wrong, was T was like sending me a little stimulation to my growth by sending me a ray or something that allowed my vehicle to see things that otherwise it wasn't going to see. That all took place over the course of a couple of months, I think, at the most. I didn't really think about it at the time, but it was years later. That's where it seems to me that it was that short-lived, because I haven't had it for a long time that I can remember. Many years now, and anything like that. So it's like T just showed me that. And then but I had dreams after that. I had dreams before that. And the dreams were very descriptive. But the dreams didn't tell me what to do. And Tiendo did teach that the next level used dreams for us, and so therefore they can use dreams for anybody else too, if they want to. But maybe not everybody, I don't know how that works exactly. Because the discarnates, I believe, can also use the dreams, and also I do know how it works, I believe, because the Luciferian space alien fallen angels, the souls, dropouts from the old classroom in the previous civilization that the mythologies talk about, they can also use the spirit world and dreams. And use the spirit world to generate force. Like if they could figure out a way to make all the the spirits that are the dead buffalo in the Middle West of the United States run, because they can maybe find out. I mean, this sounds silly, but imagine trying to find a whole bunch of cowboy spirits. Being able to sort through to figure out how to attract cowboy spirits, and then draw them to the spirits of those or the Indian spirits, or the tribal spirits, or both of them together, draw them both to get them to run, and then when they're all together running, or just set them off, and then when you set them off, you just have enough energy to set them off, then they do it on their own, and they become a wind in the Midwest. And Tiendo said that wasn't the only way they thought that wind was generated. They weren't by far saying that. They were saying, but that's a possible wind that can be generated. And they were referring to the winds that were in the Midwest, that blow very strong. They weren't saying that that was a minor wind that they were experiencing. I didn't feel that from what they were saying, the way they said it. Because, of course, when people say things, a thought comes with it a lot of times. My interpretation may be wrong, though, on some of that. But talking about dreams, and maybe that's enough of that, because, they're actually, Tiendo talked about how the like the Ascended Masters and are Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, and they can ride herd over a lot of cattle. That's interesting. That a whole different circumstance. Years later, Doe talked to, it wasn't years later. No, it was while T was still in her vehicle, I believe, when they talked about how one next level soul could ride herd on a lot of humans, a lot of cattle, like a cowboy. And so I just realized that. So it's like, that's a little piece of because I noticed with all the prophecy, most of it is like 2 or 3 at least, I think, examples of it that you can find in what Jesus said in the 4 Gospels and what was said in other ways in the book of Revelation. And how does that happen, right? I ask a lot of questions, and so, how does that happen that they can make things happen in the future? They're not making things happen in the future. They just know like if you have the overview of the ants in the house, and you know what their pathways are, you know what their choices are, because you designed the whole environment, and you can. And that's basically the bottom line. They can go into wherever they want to go to help steer things or give new options to steering things in different directions, new choices. And the humans can just bob along on those choices because they put them in the atmosphere of the earth to begin with. When they're starting the civilization, they bring it in. That's called heaven. That's the first heaven. And I picture it as being trillions even of little objects that are spirits that have skills, that have invented things, that were, space travel, maybe, who knows what. I think it's probably all put there. Or the next level brings it in stages and puts more there by being on their minds. Let's say they had a member of the next level who had grown to be in the department in the next level that was putting elements together to make different vehicles and to create the seeds that would then be able to be grown to become those vehicles. Because we see a lot of evidence of that. So let's say you're in that department, they may have that individual come on their crew closer and maybe never even leave the next level. With their vehicle, but be like one of the pilots or the only pilot of the heaven vehicle, because that vehicle is depicted in Revelations chapter 7 as being separating from the earth, or maybe it's 6 at the end of 6. It says that the heaven is going to be wrapped up like a scroll. Well, picturing it as a scroll is like saying they're going to wrap up the information that it's contained with. And they're going to take it, so it's going to be a scroll on their shelf, the whole human kingdom on their data library. Which, the library might be another planet that they put it on that has that same frequency base. They might sort them, because Tiendo did say that there's different ways the garden grows, and that there can be individuals that they would call, that the next level would make a base out of the planet, if the life forms on it were all gentle and weren't so predatory and ready to kill whatever they don't understand. Like with jets going up after UFOs, which have been reported a number of times in the early days, when you could count on that. Right now, by the way, UFOs are right now, they're not from the next level, in my opinion. So they're either created by the military, or they're the spacecrafts that the Luciferian space aliens still have. That they were allowed to hide under the ground, I believe. Tiendo didn't say that exactly, but they did provide us with the book about the inner earth. They didn't, but and thinking about that as a possibility, that was interesting. They didn't ever say that this is the way it is exactly. About things that they didn't feel instruction to know that I remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't remember that part of it, whether they said that they knew this was true or not. Because I know there were things that they said that I certainly didn't remember. If I went back and listened to the tapes over again, the ones that I was sitting in on for those 19 years, I know there was so many things went over my head. It's hard to imagine how stupid I was. But I was soaking it up best I could. And so I did get some of it. And thank you for that. I'm saying to Tiendo in my mind, because anyway, so with that sidetrack, let's see if I want to go back to something. Oh, the magic, I still wasn't getting to the end of that. But I was talking about the Fatima, that would be magic too, and that would be a trick. Tiendo would call them tricks. They even had us go to a theosophy meeting. This was when we were, actually it was after T left her vehicle. We went to a theosophy meeting, I think in Las Vegas maybe. Or maybe it was California. I think it was Las Vegas. Yeah. And they didn't give us any instructions on what to say or not to say, but we knew that the only thing, the guidelines they get us is don't make ourselves conspicuous. We're not trying to attract their attention. We're not trying to preach to them. But what we said to them was up to us. And that's an example of how the next level doesn't take total control of us. when they send us out on a task. They let us experience the task and choose what we're going to say and do in response to that. And then that would be reported back to Tiendo, and in a report that somebody on the task would either be assigned to do or wanted to do, or it would be part of a task to send a report back on, because Tiendo didn't come with us during that. And so we went there, and they had like a figure of a human, like with a turban on, like a case, and he was like sitting in the lotus position, I think, and his hands were open, like the meditative position that they teach, and to receive the universal mind or the cosmic consciousness. They might call it the mind of God also. And with the idea that this individual in the past had teleported gemstones through the palms of their hands. Maybe out of their mouth too, maybe? It's possible, I guess. And I thought to myself, really? So, Veedavou didn't say if that was possible, but they would say that it was a trick. But I never thought about what was the trick about it. And then they started talking about how, another time, totally, how they felt like the Lady of Fatima was a hologram trick. And then it talks about that as the miracles and the signs that are going to be shown to the humans that might even be a rapture. They might even stage a rapture, though kind of indicated that was a possibility. I don't think kind of indicated. I think it was in Beyond Human Chapter 2, maybe. If somebody else, XF told me that was the case. On the chapter, I might have quoted him wrong. But I remember though talking about the big surprise and wrapping it up, that he didn't know exactly how much of that we were going to see with our eyes, talking about. There's also see as understand. It's the same word. Well, maybe if they said it that way, they would have said see with the opta tame or pneuma optamine, or maybe pneuma optamine, maybe that's the way you would say it in the Greek. I'm probably butchering it. But let me see if I want to go back to anything in my mind. I'm kind of making a review there. Computer operating. In the new Star Trek series, this is a comment. Well, let me look before that. Did you ever think about rejoining the class after you left? No, I didn't. In fact, I've talked about before in the previous streams that I just recently have done over the last month, and that I was kind of elated. My body and humanness was elated by being outside the classroom. Not that being in the classroom was a hardship in any way. It was not. it was easy to be in the classroom physically and mentally too, because everybody was so nice, everybody was so thoughtful and considerate and understanding and seeking. You know, I mean, not that we didn't have problems. We did. We had little scuffles. Someone would push somebody in the chest. Happened one time I know about, and when somebody grabbed somebody else and pulled them into a closet, and they began feeling each other up until one of them decided to leave the closet. I know about that one. But so I wasn't, you know, so I left, you know, but I remember being in the supermarket and coming up to the choosing my own food, and there was like a pleasure with it. Can you imagine that? What kind of a minor pleasure that was? Only because that wasn't my department. But also that I had the choice of what to eat. And I didn't want that choice while I was in the group, because I was perfectly happy with all the choices I was given. It's not like during the group I ever had a thought of, wow, I wish we could have something else. I never had that thought that I was conscious of. I mean, I didn't like the okra one time, and that was hard to take, and Doe didn't like it either, but he felt like it was instruction. I mean, he didn't say that, but I know he worked very hard to feel like he was giving us things that T was in favor of. But that was after T left her vehicle. Because he would ask T for help on, you know, maybe get an idea of a change in the diet. And then he would ask, I believe he would ask T. I wasn't there when he was doing that. He didn't talk out loud about to T ever. I never even heard him say thank you, T, out loud. But I mean, you can tell, we knew that he loved T in every way that was possible, without being doing any more than a hug or maybe a kiss on the forehead from T. Not on the lips. Though said that you can't imagine, you know, dirtying his lips on his older member's lips. Can you imagine saying that? Holy smokes, is he objective? When he believes everything that came out of his older member's mouth. You know, which they were working on the whole time together. It's not like T was dictating anything. No, T didn't dictate anything. She never said that I'm your older member to Doe. Doe had to come to recognize it. And he said he did recognize it when he was traveling with T in 19, like September of, no, in April of, starting in April of 1973, I'm sorry, till sometime in 1994, I don't know how many months, he was like kind of rebelling the way from, I shouldn't say rebelling, that wasn't the right word. Let me try to pull in what the word was that he used. All right, I feel like rebelling is an okay word to use. And to one point, like, you know, about choices that they would make. And, you know, they were traveling around the country, telling people, giving them pictures. I don't know if it extended to after they were giving the cards of the two witnesses that this happened or not. But I wonder if it was before that. That's my sense. And and so there was a point where T sat on the curb of the street, and she put her head in her hands with her elbows on her knees, and said, "I'm not moving. I'm not going anyplace else." They were living out of their car. I think a small car, a little sports car that I think Doe had. and because Doe wanted to keep on trying different options of going to this person or going to this place. Maybe it was just going to this person to talk to them. And T already knew in her mind that wasn't going to benefit their task. I think that's the best way I can say it. And but she let Doe go through it probably a number of times by going with him to something, and then showed him how it didn't work out, or something. Or maybe not. I don't know that she showed him anything. He learned that it didn't work out. That's the way I think that would represent what Doe might say to it, as best I can tell from the feelings that I got from Doe. And I'm trying to be in tune with him right now to try to portray accurately as possible. And because he said that he came to recognize that T was his older member, because she would make choices that wouldn't have all those different other things associated with them, that would get to the same place faster. And I don't know if it took them more than one time for that to happen or not, to where, I don't think so. Because Doe came up to speed very quickly. And I'm not saying that as a judge, like I can judge Doe's speed, but, I mean, it wasn't days passed after T left that, he was not coming back with the next step for us. Even though it was certainly a difficulty for him. And even years later, he had when we went to Atlanta, he was kind of in tears about because he couldn't feel T's mind with him when he was in Atlanta, which was consistent with what they had always said about going east of the Mississippi River as being out of touch with the next level mind, the spacecraft that had a section of it, or maybe the entire spacecraft, I don't know, over the west. No, I think it's who knows how big it is. It's the whole Earth. It may, engulf the whole Earth, for all I know. That wouldn't be hard to see, because you could see it like an egg at the bottom of the 1,360-mile wide square or round with that diameter in both directions, right? Because that would be the same thing. It doesn't have to be square, I don't think. Although it said each side was the same, but each side could be, no, if it was rounded, it wouldn't be the same size then, would it? Because it would be traveling a different distance. So it's got to be a square, I guess, by that definition in the New Jerusalem of Revelation chapter 20 or 21. Let's see what I'm going to go back to now. Okay, in the Star Trek series, we learned that their ship, USS Discovery, is actually run, I'm reading off a chat room, driven on magic, mushroom spores. Oh, really? I didn't even know that. Okay. The ship actually uses biological mechanism for warp transportation. Well, I'm not going to say that's not possible. I don't know what's not possible, but I imagine, you can, if you knew how to use those elements, you could come back from like a gas, right? You can look at what they can do with methane gas. Look what they can do with, So yeah, okay. Using biological mechanisms for warp transportation. Yeah. Now I don't know what warp transportation is possible. We don't see any evidence of that yet, that I'm aware of warp transportation. Unless you want to consider breaking the sound barrier warp. Sure, you could. You could say the sound barrier is breaking warp transportation, and you could say that the different speeds they travel in space that they've learned to do, by getting into different orbits faster, they can use the planet's orbit then to spin themselves for even faster yet. I guess the bigger the planet, maybe the faster to spin, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the smaller the planet, the faster to spin. Maybe there's no relationship at all with that. I guess, no, it's what I think it is of course how many times that other planet is going around, which is, I don't think, always associated with its size. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So you're catching on to the other spirit database. Could maybe even take some from it. Wouldn't that be interesting? Multifaceted next level. Let's say there was a civilization on Venus or Mars or other planets because the sun was hotter, and so those areas could have humans on them. Even be in a frequency that we can't see, but still be physical. Tiendo talked about that. Oh yeah, you know what? But I think the next level spacecrafts were driven by an element that is not in the periodic table, which is like a nuclear element. Now I don't know if it's and the reason I say that, I can't say that Tiendo taught that. But there's reasons for believing that is, first of all, because if I believe that the next level created everything, then they created that too. And the ability for the humans to do that. Okay, so did the space aliens know how to do that? I don't know. It depends on whether the civilization they were a part of before, whether it was on a different planet or had grown with that technology to have that. Or whether a previous civilization on Earth had grown to have that technology or not. So if they did, then that would all be considered part of the human kingdom to be able to grow towards that. The next level wouldn't even have to get involved for humans to learn that. But they would know how far they went in that technology. So that then they would know that they would be able to come in with even greater technology and put that into, recycle it so that it doesn't infect the universe or beyond the solar system, or however far they want to let that go, even potentially through a wormhole to another civilization somewhere. They could redirect it who knows where. I mean, I know there's movies that have probably touched on all this stuff. And it's all potential. I don't know that we can say what's not true about anything, hardly. Yeah, we can, we can measure a glass of water as 8 ounces by our little glass size and call it 8 ounces. Fine, We know a lot of stuff, especially compared to things that we didn't know not too long ago. But the next level, they're operating on a whole different time frame. They don't have human time. Tiendo taught that their time is in events. So the cycle around the Earth. So they're looking at the events on Earth. They know that the time frame of the Earth is what they gave that Earth to have with the moon and its cycle around the sun. So I know I'm stating the obvious, but it is also obvious, but at the same time, it's beyond our ability to comprehend. And so that's the lure, if you want to say it that way, of when they give that to us, and we're given that to us, I think, just by looking up at the stars. They give us, we're actually able to receive things that if we're looking down all the time, we're not going to receive into our eyes visually. And through our eyes that we receive the most light. And that light has with it potentially as just like the way I believe humans use a carrier signal, and then they send another signal with that carrier signal. So they can mathematically, just remove it and use that for the transportation of radio waves and television waves. And I think the next level came up with that technology. They can do the same things on a bigger scope, as well as allow humans to learn how to do that on a smaller scope. With even humans riding spirit. So spirit is equivalent in the prophecy as waves. But I did want to get back to how the next level puts prophecy into motion, if anybody hasn't really had these thoughts or not. I don't know, but maybe I'll say something that's related to Tiendo, and it can expand other people's minds the way it can expand everybody's mind, I believe. And that is that, Tiendo at one point just introduced to us frequencies being something that the universe is, or everything is based on. And that's the frequency of mind we're talking about. And mind is experience. And captured experience. Drawn experience. That compounds upon itself. And that's why it's compared to being like the ocean, the sea, is the word used. And that word, usually when it's used, relates to salt sea. So maybe fresh water doesn't hold mind. I wonder if, I had this thought some time ago, but I wonder if mind is affected when the atmosphere is so full of carbon, to where even though the oceans are designed to absorb CO2, if mind was of a certain frequency, then you could say that it has a certain kind of a signature that would relate to one of the poles of the planet, negative or positive, maybe negative, then it starts to acidify, I guess, the earth, the sea, to acidify with an acid, and that changes the polarity of the programming that caused that to happen. Balance in the waters. So when the next level is going to make it so that the sea is dead, that's them making it fresh again, starting over again. There will be no more seas, it says. Now, that doesn't mean that a sea and an ocean are the same thing exactly, because they think that when they were talking about seas, they were talking about the ones that were the Mediterranean and the Dead Sea, and maybe that's why the names came, Salton Sea, and like if the sea has lost its savor, wow, that's interesting to think about it that way. Being the sea no longer can do what for the next level they want the sea to do. And maybe the holding of a certain strata of mind. Like, I think the closer you are to next level behavior, the more the vehicle would be attracted, would be helped to evolve in a way that was gentle, because that's the behavior of a next level member, and considerate even, and tolerant, and changeable, adaptable to the environment, more so, and blending in, and kind, which is all kind of the words related to the word meek. And Jesus said that the meek shall inherit the earth. Well, I know the people that go to heaven aren't inheriting the earth, except in a degree if the next level counts them worthy to be brought back to the earth during a time when they're starting a new classroom, a new experiment that's going to be composed of some classroom time. However it might be formatted. Because then they could bring back the spirit that they've been able to save on their scroll, insert it into the master computer and of the earth. However they do that, maybe with a big ray, who knows? Maybe with the sun in little spurts. That are big spurts, because you're thinking one of those solar little spurts on the sun produces a solar wind that can engulf the whole planet at the same time. With a range of frequencies that we have no idea what are capable of stimulating in the earth and throughout the earth. Even the movement of the plates. Heating the magma that is known to be under the earth, not that far down, I understand it, is, that humans can tell is there, that isn't all the same, composed of the same molten rock elements. If you heat it up even more, what's going to happen? It's going to produce steam, right? It's going to start to dry up the water, and that's going to cause a constriction. And it's going to heat the elements that are around it, to where, I guess, what if it reaches a pocket of natural gas, or methane or whatever? It ignites it, and you get an explosion that's a volcano, potentially, I guess. Maybe that's one way to look at it. But can the spirit heat up the water? I don't know. But it certainly can add to its polarity, I think. And that's why environmentalists talk about the acid oceans. And maybe the killing, the way the animals are, the fish are all beaching themselves. So how does prophecy get fulfilled? When you see that there's the lamb is lying with the lion, and you have dogs and cats that are friendly to one another, when normally they'd be in hunt against one another, not one another, but one direction, or wolves and cats that prey on the smaller animals, all of them. And you have the same thing in terms of the mind, to where they prey on what they consider to be the weaker minds. And the next level keeps a balance with that, so that which they can regulate in our even they can have boundaries, I believe, on what areas of the planet that they regulate. For instance, I'll give you an example of why I say that, is because Tiendo taught that when we were living in Utah in 1977, we moved away from Utah, and one time even decided we're thinking about moving back there again, because Doe was including us in the choice to move back there again after T left her vehicle. So some of the students, at least, knew about his thinking about it. He didn't always include all the students in some of the meetings. I was sometimes involved, and sometimes I'm sure I wasn't. And but he said that he probably said this in a meeting for everybody, and so it might be in some of the tapes, that that the next level can change. Well, no, that the Luciferian space aliens are stronger, or at least one of them, or some of their influence is stronger in the Salt Lake City area. And I look away, I'm not reading anything, in case you're wondering. I look away when I talk. Just talking to people is distracting. I get distracted by their eyes and thoughts, I think, more easily. I don't know if it comes through the video or not. I'm not saying it's not possible. But so in Revelation 12, we were taken into the wilderness. I'm changing subjects again. I'm saying that was the wilderness time. It was 3.5 years after that. Well, let me put it this way. The prophecy says, which I really want to go to instead of this here, that's on my screen. Let's see, where was I? Oh, yeah, Revelations. So, no. Bear with me a second, please. Oh, what am I doing? keep that up there. All right, so it says here, I don't know if it's updated by you yet. It's a little slow on the live side. Wow, am I still even going? It says I'm live. 4 people watching. Oh, but the video's not updating. Maybe YouTube limits me, because this happened before. So, oh, wait a minute. Oh, but I do see. I was playing with this scrolling, and wow, okay, it just showed up with Revelation 4. Okay. All right, good. That's fine. I'm sorry, I'm just taking forever here. I should go get a drink of water, actually, but I've already gone through this many times, so I want to skip right down to Revelation 12:6. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So that's 1,260 days, if you can't add up those numbers. Now, see, the signs in the beginning that Jesus said were going to be coming were going to be shown with earthquakes and he didn't say volcanoes, I don't think, so I may be wrong about this, but he said there would be earthquakes before the time of the end was going to come. And I think he was talking about 2 different stages of their coming, and because the time of the end is the second part of Tiando's. There's 2 different times. There's their coming, and then there's the end of their coming, which starts from when they left. 2 time periods, and so when we were living outdoors in Wyoming. We started living in Wyoming, and the instruction to change what we were doing, giving out meetings, ended on April, I think it was the 21st of April, 1976, when T was at a meeting, and there was only a few hecklers in the audience, and it was the press, I think. Or just the press and maybe a heckler or 2. Anyway, there weren't many people in the meeting. And T, I don't know if T stood up or not. I got the feeling that she stood up. Maybe I'm wrong. And said that the harvest is over. And then they left. And then they gave instructions for the groups, which we were like 4 or 5 groups at the time. We were traveling around the country, staying in touch with T&Do largely through Holiday Inns. We weren't staying in the Holiday Inns, we were camping, but we would leave messages at the desk for the Holiday Inn for another person, a phone number to leave us a phone number where they could be reached. No, they would leave us a number that was a payphone that they know they could receive a phone call from at a certain time. And so then they would get the group leader to go over there with his partner, her partner, and then make the phone call, and they would be waiting. So we'd always have to look for a phone booth that would receive calls, not just make calls, because they had different kinds of phone booths in those days. But anyway, so we started there, and so then they told us to finish up our tasks that we had, our meetings that we had scheduled already. And at the time, I was in a group that was scheduling a meeting in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And we were camping up in Cape Girardeau in Missouri. And we had organized the meeting, and next to nobody came, and T&Do even made us assign a price to come to the event, to the meeting, which we hadn't been doing that before then. I don't know when they started doing it, because I wasn't with the group the whole time they were doing things. So I might be wrong, and maybe they were charging at some other previous meeting. But anyway, because they wanted to keep hecklers out, they thought just a little charge would keep maybe hecklers out because they wouldn't pay to heckle. So I don't know if that worked or not for this meeting, but there was one person that came that wanted their $10 back, and we gave it back to him, I believe. I wasn't in charge of the money, so I didn't actually see the money change hands. But I can't imagine that we wouldn't have given it back to him. Would have been actually Mercody and no, it would have been Branody and Arody that were the overseers at that point. Because Mercody and not Serafody, Mercody and Junody went to have Junody's baby with an Arkansas family that wanted the baby. Because Junody didn't want the baby because she wanted to be in the classroom and there weren't no babies allowed, no children. And so the next level helped to find a loving home that they felt like was going to be a loving home. I'm sure they wouldn't have left it with somebody that they felt like was going to be a terrible home. Because that wouldn't have been with the next level, wouldn't have approved of that. And I know Junody was in touch with T&Do about it. Because they were the overseers of that group before that. And there's no way they wouldn't have been talking about it. Because T&Do were that hands-on, and Junody would have wanted to be that honest about what she was going to do with the baby. When we get to know T&Do's mind by learning all the things that they said and did, then we start to identify how something can be more likely of their mind or not. Which I'm bringing that to the table because I know that there are thoughts that will say these things were made up and these were made up, but to show some congruence of thinking, I believe, can be helpful, because we're gonna lose completely the ability to be able to judge whether this is true or not. And the only people that are going to be able to have a sense that it's true or not are going to be the ones that take that information and even copy it and keep a database of it, and then when it's not available anymore, then they can They can even test it. They can go look for it and see if it's available anymore. And they might not be able to find it as well, because maybe the search engines will be trying to get rid of everything that's dissident. You know, the religious are engaged in a war against the atheists and the other religions. And the atheists are in a war against the Christians and maybe some of the other religions. And other atheists even, potentially, who knows? Of course, yeah, because atheism becomes something that's, like Tiendo said, could be a good step, just like all the other steps, just like religion can be a good step in the many opportunities in the human kingdom that we have to get to the top of the mountain, but that all need to be getting rid of in order to appeal to members of the next level that are off the mountain of the human. They're not human at all anymore. And that's why it's so foreign to do that, because they're providing the ones that fell away from that, giving us the options to remain human or to think we're headed towards the next level by being gravitating towards, which we are if we keep on going through. Whenever we get approached by more of the reality, then we're faced with the choice of whether to look into that a little more. And we get clued into what's a little more real when we see things more in secular terminology, because then it's more current with where we are in technology, and so it's not so superstitious looking. And I think the minds that are gravitating to seeing the science in the religion as being side by side, not in objection against one another. And that comes from both sides of it. The creationists to insist that this was all done in 6 days of the human cycle of day is showing the absence of mind growth. To know whether that absence could be in by the choice, the absence of mind growth by choice, even though that might be a segue to what I was saying, because we do have the choice every time we come to an opportunity to go with this or to go with that, and that's what makes us who we are. I mean, you know, it's like when you're walking down a dark alley and, you know, in a place that might not be a great neighborhood where there's violence and things happening, potentially more of, you know, you might be more on guard, of course. And the same thing is with the dark side of the of playing with using other people for somebody to get a beef off, become their victim, or you know, because they can't help, they're like, you know, so out of whack with their chemistry that they're insane in some ways, you know, either addicted to a drug to where they would justify harming somebody else to get money for something, for, you know, the drugs, or those kind of behaviors. That, of course, extends to nations, having an agenda for killing people overseas, and even in their own backyard, like they said Saddam was doing, and that they're doing all the time. Just the nuclear particles that are allowed to be in the environment are doing that. It looks like I'm losing my voice. So maybe I need to close this up. Shamanism would be another of the options to the top of the mountain. There might be some that are, there's more people engaged in, if you want to take it as a pie, and they're all interrelated. Shamanism, as far as I can tell, is more geared towards the tribal, the Indian origin of thought, and there's a lot to be said about it, but I think it's in contact with the same possibilities. It's in contact with the spirit world, part of heaven, and the next level part of heaven, which would be maybe the second level of heaven, and then, to the degree it's part of the third level of heaven is to the degree that and final level of heaven, for all intents and purposes, for our discussion, where the creators have only their information, which is on how to overcome the other two levels of heaven, to graduate, which the other two levels of heaven lead us to as we make our choices. So, and people can make their choices very quickly. If someone's a shaman now and they believe this way, they might simultaneously be working towards the next level, closer to the next level, in different terminology that I'm not expressing right now. And so they could be, in their lessons on life, be ahead of me, for sure, and other people, but it may just not translate to being on T and Do's direct line. But it can be, I believe, pointed to T and Do, and if they hear about T and Do and they don't take the option to look into it a little bit and let it, and actually it's worthy of a little investigation. They'll be repeated. They'll have repeated opportunities to look into that, and those opportunities can even come with a little help from the next level for them to look into that, by perhaps things that happen with them in their world and in relationship to the other people that are also considered to be shamans, and or the study of other religions, or if they don't look at anything else but shamanism, if they keep it into that one vein when they have the opportunity to do it, then they might not ever come out of that. And if they die then they won't ever grow to, because once you die, then you're in the spirit world and you are what you became, whatever it is. You could think that you were going to heaven and would be met by your relatives, and you might have your relatives there waiting for you, and they may say, okay, there's the light over here, and we're gonna go there now because you're the last one. And so then they go towards the light, and that ends up, they just merge with everything else that's going in that direction. So it can even, be millions of people, millions of spirits. And going to the light may take time, may be very slow. I don't know. And it may subsist, it may be like stretch, or maybe it's like a sound wave. Maybe it just happens in waves. I don't know. Also, what does it mean? Well, it does say that about the shamans, since I was on that subject. But let me jump the order in which I got some questions here. Also, another question, also, what does it mean if there is no more classrooms on Earth? Well, there is a classroom on Earth still, but it's not. It's taken a different form. It's not a classroom to where there's going to be older members actually with somebody physically living together and teaching them how to overcome the earth. And then, well, I mean, that's not set to happen right away necessarily. Doe thought it could happen in two ways, and the earth could be used as a base for a little while first. I think that's what his current thinking was in Beyond Human, session 12. No, session 11, I believe. But I can get that mixed up with the sessions. But he... I talked about that in the previous ones. If you have the time and you want to review them, but I don't know which one, so might be more stuff than you want to go through to get any more on that. But let me think of something else I could say about it quick. There was. Yeah, I'm not an older member, so I can't be a teacher in that regard. Because it's got to be according to the older member that we're connecting with. If it wasn't the older member that we were conditioned or we were grown from the previous civilization, from the previous age that came through the Jesus experience last, then we wouldn't we would be getting a facsimile of the next level. And I'm not saying that couldn't benefit somebody, just like the religions can benefit somebody. Okay? But it wasn't in, just like Doe talked about, the specific 3 different ways that people could qualify to go with them. In other words, to be in the heaven when that heaven separates from the earth. There were 3 different categories of people. One was the students that he was with that were recognized the older member and wanted to go with him 100%. And were put to the test on whether they really meant it for years, except for one that was very quick. In order to go back with them on that bus. And then the second group, which some of the first group were actually more on the same growth level with, that still needed to come back and overcome more of the human kingdom before they would get the same reward that most of those 38 got, I believe, of a type of position on a spacecraft and a new vehicle. The type of vehicle that they would get might be different, I think. But I might be wrong about that. Maybe you can't see it on the outside. And the great dragon was cast out. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. Got distracted there I was still thinking about that. My body was still going in the motion of reading what was in front of me because I was kind of reading at the same time when I was talking. I know that's kind of inconsiderate, but it probably didn't make any sense. Maybe I went totally out of context there. See, I'm getting too tired. I'm starting to get hallucinations, like, you know. Let me get back to what you were saying. So if somebody did start up a classroom that I will have nothing to do with, because I don't feel like it's a task that Doe would have me do. If it happens, you know, somehow, I don't know, then, you know, I'll go with it for as long as it's happening, but I won't shape it. But if somebody does start something, a group, and they, you know, they want me to come visit, I would talk to T and Doe about it, and if it felt good to me, I would try to do it. But it wouldn't be something that I would stay with and become the leader of, because I don't want to be a leader of anybody. And it wouldn't, you know, all I could do would be tell them, you know, what happened, what T and Doe did in this circumstance and that circumstance. I can give them the same diets and stuff, you know, it wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think, but I don't know, I don't think T and Doe see that as necessary at this point, because yeah, it's not necessary. It's a distraction, actually, because it would make it easier than the task that they gave us to go at the pace of either separating from the world to whatever degree, which is part of the formula, or to the degree of believing that T and Doe came from the kingdom that had created the planet Earth and all its life forms, and standing up for that belief, and no matter what the consequences are, and then dying with that belief. And the standing part is not denying it. When there might be a time where denying it would get you saved. You know, now, the next level doesn't mean that you're going to be lost if you deny it. No, the next level is not going to throw away somebody that's that close, you know, that thinks they're doing it all right, and then the last minute they choke. No, I don't think the next level would lay a guilt trip on people. They didn't do that to us in the group. But if you do, they do tell the truth that if you deny it, there is a chance that you'll end up falling away, because you'll be tempted to justify the denying of it instead of thinking that you failed. So there's a danger, and Doe did talk about the danger of dropping out of the classroom. Not that I remember before I left. He didn't go into that at all that I remember. But he might have said something about it in the Beyond Human tapes. I would like to have somebody help me refresh my memory on that, if somebody else recognizes it, goes back and looks at it. So, what methods of contact with spirit world do you use? I don't use any. Astral projection, trance, meditation, psychedelic drugs, prayer, learning from holy books. Well, yeah, you could say I use prayer and learning from holy books. And prayer to me is Tiendo, is this correct? Tiendo, is that correct? They're my avenue. You usually knows names because that's the direct. If somebody doesn't think of them as being their direct, then that will go to the same place, according to Tiendo, would be to think in terms of sending your asking for help and asking for direction to the highest source you can reach beyond the stars. And so that would be beyond the universal mind. I mean, with that thinking of the universal mind, that's thinking that there's more than one universe, okay? Is the way I'm thinking about that. So if you think of beyond the stars, then, you know, I don't know if it's that important, to tell the truth. If you're just thinking about in the stars, I think you're outside the atmosphere of the Earth. If you think about, like, even within Pluto, you might not be without the electromagnetic atmosphere of the Earth might extend that far. I don't know for sure. Kind of looks like it might. Because if the god of the underworld was Hades, and that was considered in Greek mythology a god, then that's where the dead spirits would go, which could be represented right within the first heaven. Could have its own Hades right there in the bottom, inside the earth even, as the lowest frequency that can be used for whatever purpose, or it can be locked away so it's not used for a period of time, which would be the mind of the lower forces. And the next level can have that all saved in their databases. Database can be the earth itself. But I think the lake of fire actually dissolves that. So it seems like eternity, I think, but I don't think it, only because it just ends up becoming the lake of fire. I don't know if when it's extinguished, it adds to the fire that extinguished it. I don't know. But I use meditation, and they gave us some meditations. Let's start with Tiendo. One meditation was to think of ourselves as sitting in front of the chief, an older member of the next level. No, I think at first they said the older member of the next level. And they even gave us the image of the older member of the next level being that humanoid shape that was kind of white and not a glossy white, more of a matte white. And anyway, you can go look at my Sawyer Heaven's Gate page of Facebook if you want to see a picture of the older member and a description. There's a lot of pictures there that are worth looking at, I think. I should probably put some more up there. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to go through that whole meditation right now because I do need to close down this conversation. Well, not conversation. Well, it is a conversation because I'm kind of conversing with the chat room. So let me look at see if there's any other questions in here. What was diet recommended by tea and dough? Yeah. Well, ended up, we tried a lot of things. We were vegetarian, we were lacto-vegetarian, we were Pritikin, first we were Pritikin. First we were no diet, then we were, whatever diet we choose, each student chose for some years, for the first 3 years. And then, which, by the way, I wanted to get back to, that's when we moved into houses. It was around 1980. So it was about 1,260 days after we gathered in the wilderness in Wyoming, which is what it said here in Revelation 12:6, which still hasn't updated on my screen. I wonder if it's just my screen that's not updating. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Come on. I want to go up. All right, I got the 6 finally on my screen. It said that the woman fled to the wilderness, and if you look at wilderness, it says it's a desert or desolate, solitary place, area, lonely, desolate, uninhabited. And we were in Medicine Bow National Forest, in the Veedavou camping area, which just was a dirt road that went in a big circle in the Medicine Bow National Forest and had no facilities. And we were living there for between there and South Texas, according to the seasons, so that, you know, we were in the winter, we were in South Texas, and we were in the spring and summer up in Wyoming. And also we lived in northern Colorado on ranch land that they rented, you know, hundreds and hundreds of acres that people owned, and they let us rent a little portion of it. And one portion there had a little schoolhouse on it, one-room schoolhouse that was probably used at one time. That's where we had Pac-Man playing. Anyway, but so that was the wilderness, in my opinion, and it was 3.5 years that we were there, while the woman was being fed by the next level what to give to the children, to feed the children, which counted as being dough, and then dough being partnered with dough. So he wasn't the child, except at one time he was the child of T, when T was doing this task that he's doing now, trying to usher in students from the next level. I mean, students from the human kingdom that were planted on a previous garden or a previous civilization on Earth, or a previous civilization, right, anywhere that I don't know about. Anyway, so, and the Christians get this all wrong, but I'm not going to go through what they say it is. Well, I never saw them actually talk about this verse. I'm sure they would say something about it, even if we don't know what it is. They do say that sometimes. But they would relate to the words that were in it that they do know about, and that would be like wilderness, for instance, or prepared for God. You should feed her there 1,000 days. Well, if they think the woman is the church, they're right in a sense, okay? But what they don't get is that it's the head of the church, which is the Father, and Son of the Father, the one that was Jesus, that are on the throne. They're working on the throne task at the same time. But the older member, T, is preparing the younger member, Do, to be on the throne by himself. That's how it works. That's how they worked it. And that's how Do came to understand that it was happening, not because T was telling him that. Although T did suggest early on that perhaps the rejection of the one that came as a carpenter would be met and was from the next level, would come as the son of a Presbyterian minister. I think is what she said. This next time around, which Do was the son of a Presbyterian minister. Who went to seminary and rejected it because they were too limiting in what they were willing to examine and think about, related to Scripture and other writings that weren't in the Bible. That Do provided us after T left, because that wasn't our focus then. But after T left, it became our focus to explore different ways of going public for the second time over 18 years. So let me see if yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about the diet because there's a lot I've talked about before in previous ones, but it's the Transfiguration Diet that I use to cure my Lyme's disease without using any antibiotics. And that's a mucusless diet, so there's no flesh, there's no dairy, but I've been cheating. I even cheated tonight by having a little milk in coffee, and I don't drink coffee either on a regular basis, but once in a while I feel like I want it. And I'm regretting it. I can feel a pain in my side and the digestion of it. So no dairy in the pure diet, which I didn't use the pure diet. I used a version that I cheated on, and I didn't use the entire diet, maybe 75% of it. But the main thing I used that was, I know, very beneficial was, of course, getting away from mucus. In other words, all the foods that are mucus forming, all the carbohydrates, except for the natural carbohydrates, but even limiting the natural carbohydrates like bananas and avocados. But those were my main sources of of carbohydrate. And and then the proteins being in nut butters, and tahini and sunflower butter work for me, but almond butter would be fine, cashew butter, any filbert butters, are all good because it depends on what you're maybe allergic to. I don't think peanut butter is a good choice, but we didn't have it in that diet either. Anyway, and then we did a lot of juicing on vegetables, and then we ended up juicing our own with growing sprouts. We grew sunflower sprouts, and we grew buckwheat sprouts. And then we harvested the sprouts and ground them up without the sunflower seeds, no sunflower seeds grinding up. And we made them into drinks with carrots and an apple to try to make them less bitter. And then we drank them down as a meal. The first meal of the day was usually a carrot juice, vegetable drink, with all different kinds of vegetables in it. And wheatgrass juice, we tried that for a while, every day. And carrot and apple, and carrot and cabbage and apple, and beet a little bit. Anyway, boy, this pain in my side is getting bad. I never had it this bad before. I'm going to start massaging my abdomen. So cayenne pepper and apple cider vinegar were two of the primary, and also some blackstrap molasses and others. But the cayenne pepper, I had to work my way up to a teaspoon a day at the 90,000 BTU level, drinking it in water 3 times a day, 15 minutes before eating, and not waiting much longer than 15, 20, or 30 minutes before eating afterwards, because of how it can affect the stomach, and it can produce gas right away, especially if there's anything in your stomach already. It'll just produce gas right away. So it's better not to have anything in your stomach before you take it. And take it with about 6 ounces of water, and 4 to 6 ounces of water, and 4 to 6 ounces of water. Chase it, clean water, and then I would follow that with right immediately thereafter with a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, unfiltered. So it's got the mother in it. And also used a lot of raw garlic, putting it in olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, first pressed was best. And cold pressed is best, I think, we tried to use. And we used that on our salads too. That was our main source of oil. And we used pretty much as we wanted of it, but we didn't drink it. And we only used it on food, right? So with big vegetable salads, that were all different kinds of vegetables raw, as we could tolerate them. And then there were slow cooked grains in the diet, so that they weren't cooked to death to become mucus forming. And we did that with barley and wheat, berries, and rye, experimenting. I'm not saying we stuck with all those things. So if they don't work for somebody, then they should not do them. Just because it was in that diet doesn't mean it's still the right thing to do for any one person. But the meditation would be to imagine the light coming from our older member's mind
from the next level coming into the top of our heads by the pineal gland area in the middle of the head. And then feeling that and seeing that light go through our skull and going through every cell, and focusing on it going through every cell of the body, and then and as it's doing that, it's healing that body of any things that are infirm about it, physically or mentally. And so that was one meditation. Another meditation was, like I said before, sitting at the foot of, wondering what it would be like to sit next to the feet of an older member from the next level. And then another one was some affirmations. And we had a song, help me have no human ways, no thoughts of self, no false deceit. I'll sing it. Help me have no human ways, no thoughts of self, no faults to see. Only the ways of space. I gotta start lower. Now I know my heart is fast in my Father's path at last. Only the ways of space, only the ways of space. That was the song, and that went to the song that was from Bach, Jesus meine Freund, which is Jesus my friend. And his favorite music was Lo How I Rose, which I believe he felt was T's favorite, became his favorite. I didn't know it was T's favorite until, I don't know where I learned it, but I think it was after I left the classroom. Maybe from Rio, or from Mark, or from Riccoti, or Carlotti, since Carlotti was with Riccoti for a while. Why shouldn't we use lesser spirits? I get what you're saying, but there are some people that use Beelzebub instead of Jesus to get what they want. Yeah, well, the next level doesn't stop people from doing what they want to do, even in the spirit world. And unless we ask them ahead of time to, alert us to things that they would find damaging to our growth. If we ask that question, then they'll probably give us a clue that this is not a path to take. But, what's called Beelzebub now doesn't necessarily mean it's the Luciferian space alien fallen angels, I don't think. If they're thinking of it as the fallen angels that went against the next level, well, how are they going to think of that as equivalent to talking to Jesus, who talked against the members of the student members of the next level that went against the next level? That would be like working against himself. And that's what Jesus talked about to the Hebrew priests, the Pharisees, and maybe the Sadducees, and who knows who else, the Republicans, right? But that humans use the human kingdom, the spirit world, to get what they want is a way of attracting spirits that want those things, those same things, to be their servants. And so the spirits will gravitate to the humans that want those skills and talents and understanding, and so in that way, those humans that are looking to the spirit world to get that information and those helps it's part of the option of being in the human kingdom, but it's not the final option for anybody that feels that there's more to it than that. Like there's more to it than being able to travel to Pluto or Mars or Venus or any of the planets that we know about with their minds, even in like remote viewing. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody can't travel to remote view something that's happening on a planet that they have the mind to be able to identify as being out there. And so they can envision themselves, okay, I'm going to Pluto now with my mind, so astral traveling, and now who knows if it's possible that the next level may allow them to tap into whatever mind is on Pluto. That might be the mind of the fallen angels. Being stored on Pluto, so that they can actually draw that to them. But I don't think that's the way it has to work. I think it works more simply than that, to where the next level provides the lower forces. This is actually what Tiendo taught, is that they provide the lower forces to, and Jesus taught. And I don't know that Moses, what they got from Jehovah, really addressed this directly. But Jesus said that evil needs to exist. There needs to be evil because evil is anything that takes you away from growing towards the next level kingdom, making them your master, making them their kingdom your final quest. Not that we wouldn't, but having exposure to the Luciferian space alien fallen angels means having exposure to things that came from the next level, ways of thinking, acting, and everything that came from the next level, because that's in the minds of the Luciferian space aliens that were on a planet at a time or a civilization at a time when they were learning some of those lessons, and so they became part of their soul package, their soul container, and so even when they left that last vehicle they had, the last flesh, a design vehicle, they took it with them, so it became part of their database. So now when they're in the company of the humans, they are exposing humans to that same next level information that came with them. So when they say even that God is everywhere, there are spirits in the world that believe that because they were taught that by the religions, but they got that in the first place because the next level can be everywhere at the same time because they have the technology to do it. So it's true in every sense, but the mechanics of how they are everywhere can be that, like Tiendo said, they felt like they were the cameras for the next level when they were throughout their whole mission. And so their eyes were actually being used by the next level to see what's around them, literally, I think. But also by their thinking, because the next level could know all their thoughts. Even though the next level isn't necessarily following all their thoughts, unless Tiendo make a request for information or guidance. And then Tiendo compared that to picking up the phone. And that when they would ask the question of their older members on the phone, sometimes they didn't get anything back right away or even that soon or at all for a while. And then sometimes they would ask it again and they would get a little more because it was they would learn then that it wasn't an appropriate time to get an answer to that question because the next level was helping them guide them through teaching the humans that had been taken over by the returning soul and that had a mind growing in them enough to where they had an interface because the next level gave them a deposit of their mind when they were at birth. And so the spirit that grew up from that had a certain amount of potential that other spirits didn't have in the exactly same way. They made them more odd, I guess, maybe, in some ways. Like the family of odd, which we became, the family of OD. Overdosing on the next level, right? That would be the best kind of overdosing. Because in the seed that's given has the recognition built into it. So it's of no, if anything, I became a bad characteristics. I mean, not bad, but I became demonstrative of human characteristics that had enough of the different departments, but had some stronger than others, to where there would be a challenge for the soul to take over, to overcome those characteristics. Let's say, for instance, there was a soul that came about as a result of 2,000 years ago being a guard or a sergeant in the army in Rome, okay? And so, you know, I had this persona of, so that spirit and soul that was given to that human, if one of them were given a soul by the next level at that time, or I developed it as a spirit that had that vibration, which could have some equivalence to, doesn't have to be a soul that has it, but that soul is influenced by that spirit, so that spirit then, that soul is growing simultaneous with what the next level gave it in that soul package, and then with whatever mind was given to it through the spirit canal, or the spirit absorption, by its interface with the scarnets. And so it basically then, those characteristics are in the new leaves on the tree, of the human tree. Because the branch isn't dying. That's the branch that we're looking at in the past lives. That's all the real past lives. So that this vehicle came from a lineage that was different vehicles. You know, whether it was a soldier in the Roman, or with Jesus, or in some capacity, or in the Old Testament, or with the Pharaoh, or or a slave in this other camp somewhere in Mongolia. Who knows what different vines there are, different branches there are that the next level brings together like from India, for instance. There's evidence of course, through the Hindu and the Buddhist and the Sufis and Islam, and which, talking about Islam, I did want to say something about Islam. That Tiendo said that they respected those in Islam that were covering up their bodies, wanting to be more chaste, having more chaste thoughts, or being more chaste for the next level, for Allah. And so that's like, the next level smiling on the people in the Middle East that are still embracing that chastity. Even though I'm not saying that, it depends on each individual how much they really put that into practice, of course. They could be, screwing like fish, or rabbits. Everybody and their brother, and in orgies and everything, and not that that's a bad thing to do, but in relationship to overcoming our addiction to sexuality, it does become a negative thing to do. So evil becomes relative, because it's natural to do it, but the next level wants you to have the option, wants us to all have the options to do these things and do them as much as we want to do them, and until we get to a point to where we've had enough and we don't want to, and they might bring that on to us by age. Automatically gets brought on to where we can function in that way as well as we could function when we were younger. And disease incorporates into that. And so by that, the next level is showing us that we can be just as happy without it. We learn to be happy with other things. And then those other things, of course, can become addicted to, like you can get into religion or philosophy, or and you can make that your career and your guide and your, any of them, become a teacher, a student to someone in the Ascended Masters spirit form, and that may have some individuals over in India and China and Indonesia and who else, that Aborigines, who knows where else could be related to the Ascended Master spirits that, teach their forms of discipline for even beginning as overcoming the humanness, like through the Buddhist that Doe said showed some evidence of being related to the next level, in the sense that the first Gautama Buddha was talking about getting rid of all the human behaviors and ways, and going in and being by himself without any pleasures, and looking at the carnal pleasures of whether it was eating or sexing or propagating. Even propagating is a pleasure. Having another human running around is like, makes you an automatic teacher. And so that's good for the ego. And of course it brings a lot of lessons. So it can be beneficial to the well-rounded spirit that's growing to where the next level then, when they come, they say you have to leave that behind, even your flesh, to actually graduate into my kingdom. But they don't say that to the people during the Moses first trimester, because that's the beginning of the experiment. I mean, it's not the total beginning, but it's the first stage of learning to follow instructions. And so if they say that the fish is blue, or the tent is blue and it looks gray to everybody else, or polka dot, the tent is polka dot colored, and it really looks like it's a khaki green, solid color, to my eyes, then am I going to believe them, or am I going to believe that I'm just not seeing it with their eyes? And can different eyes see different things? Yes, they can. We know that from examples of two witnesses witnessing the same thing and coming out with different descriptions of a lot of things. So how do we know that that couldn't happen also with colors and patterns? So yeah, if you're using Jesus to get what you want, then it's the same thing. It doesn't really matter what you call it. You call it Beelzebub, or it depends on how you're using Jesus. Are you using what he said, or what somebody else said he said, or what somebody else said he said, or somebody else, all the way down the line with the little game of telephone, right? And that's what the Christian religions are now. They're like about 4 or 5 levels down that telephone line of interpretations and avoiding the main things he said about giving your life, giving your all to the next level as a choice while there's an older member with you, and that treating humanity, fellow humans, the same way you want to be treated when the older member's not physically with you incarnate. So that's what should be taught, and that when the physical older member is incarnate, then there's going to be some that are going to feel like they recognize him. So all that member has to do is say, follow me, and maybe a few more things, maybe not. Maybe just follow me. Because the older member recognizes them, but they don't recognize the older member physically. But T recognized Do, the younger member. Just the same way that Jesus recognized the disciples of Jesus that he first recognized and said, follow me to. But T didn't say, follow me, that I heard. She's felt that they had a task to do together. She didn't say, follow me. So right from the beginning, boy, is my nose red or what? Because I keep rubbing it. I'm not a drinker. So I'm not Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You know what? I might have a sore on my nose that I'm spreading. Wow. It's not like the Pinocchio nose. I would hope it would be the Pinocchio nose in reverse. Well, it's just my eyes are seeing red on my nose. Oh boy. All right. So, right, so what they want, what are the Christians saying they want now? The evangelists that are covering the airwaves with on the radio, on AM radio, and some places in FM radio, and throughout all the the states, and on all the YouTube videos and everywhere, they're all talking about abundance and how humans are so great that we can actually save the planet from the Luciferian humans. We're going to save the planet from the Luciferian humans. We're going to be the caretakers of the planet. Well, they were never assigned the caretakers of the planet. They were assigned the caretakers of their own body. Are they doing that? Well, that's up to them, each one. I can't speak to that. But also they're the caretakers of the mind. They make the choices of what they're going to put their thinking on and their faith in. And if they're putting their faith in wealth, well, they're going to get what wealth can offer. They're going to get all that technology that can be bought for them so that they can get organ implants, the best of all the systems. That's what they're going to get. I mean, for a while, they're going to get no cares about anything except for their projects and their family that they want to support in those projects, or the other family's projects, if they agree with them. So that's what they get. And so that all goes away. But the next level, when you put your stock in the next level, then if they see you growing to their standards, because they don't need you, where the other side wants you to be on their team, and they will try to influence you to be on their team by promising you or bringing to you things that you say you want. Now, Tiendo also taught that the next level can give you what you want when it's not even something the next level wants you to have. So, like, let's say you ask for riches, and the next level wants to give you some experience with riches. Well, then they will allow the Luciferian space aliens to give you those riches. I mean, by bringing them to you. or sending you one of them to help you get those riches, and so because it would be a test then to see whether you outgrow wanting them. I mean, the next level, Tiendo said, wants you to have nice things, want us to have nice things, but they don't want us to want them. See, those are the kind of things that Tiendo, I think, only could say. But I might be wrong about that, because anybody that's in this atmosphere while they're here can potentially pull on that. But I don't think it's going to be far and few between. I think it is going to be far and few between that could actually say those exact words, or give that same idea. That they want you to have nice things, but they don't want you to want them. And so that's the thing. When they give you something, they're hoping that you're going to outgrow it. And like, if you recognize it came from the next level, you're asking. Well, that's why you said, "Oh God, please give me riches so that I can serve your name." You know. Okay. So then, what's going to happen after that? Let's say you get the riches, and you say, "Okay, God wants me to serve the name." And so then you put it all into, you make a big mega church, okay? And you have the media empire, you have everything, okay? But you never asked God along the way whether this was the way that he would have you, or they would have you, bring about that manifestation of what was given that you said that you wanted to do to serve them. Because it's a many-membered kingdom, and you're serving both the Father and the Son, who is also a father to you. If you think that way, if you believe that way, or serving whatever you think is your highest source, and any of those that believe they were also serving their highest source by whatever they conceived of as being that higher source, whether it's considered to be a cosmic consciousness or a universal mind, or which is all accurate, has accuracy in it, because the next level does provide the cosmic consciousness, because their heaven extends into outer space, a certain distance, perhaps to hold the planets, maybe the solar system. Okay, and so that is all provided. So it's true. And is there a universal mind? Well, as far as we know, there's a universal mind being the next level. Because we're in the fishbowl. The fish in the fishbowl does not know how many fish bowls there are, and how many other fish there are in how many fish bowls. It's really that simple. I believe, according to Tiendo, even though I'm not sure they ever used that fishbowl example, but they use the example of horses and dogs. Dogs in a good way, and horses in a good way. Not to treat them poorly, ever. Treat them with respect and kindness, and discipline to teach them, so that the ones that receive those teachings, even though they may be as wild as can be out in the human kingdom, running with the packs, you know, the ones that receive the teachings by not trying too hard to escape, and not fighting too much of the next level when they try to put a saddle on them and jump on them and ride them and tame them, because that's what I believe the first trimester was doing the most with the Moses camp was taming the wild nature of the beasts being our mammalian bodies. And the mind that comes from those mammalian bodies, that is mammalian mind. But it's a mixture of mammalian mind and Luciferian space alien fallen angel mind and whatever seeds there are still in the genetic code from next level mind. That's what humans end up drawing on to become what they become a leaf in the tree. And then fall off and die is a human vehicle dying, is a leaf falling off the tree. And yet the spirit remains. And if they became a soul by entering into a soul, then that part of the spirit is now has a chance for living eternally as opposed to being recycled. Because then that spirit would be inside of that soul container that was created by the next level. And it's a physical container that's got a subtle kind of physicality that you might compare to wind or the breath that comes out of you. You can feel it. Which is the same word in the Greek as pneuma. And so the soul is the such of the Greek. And a lot of times, sometimes it's used interchangeably with pneuma, which is also mind. And mind isn't just it's outside the brain, but it's connected to the brain. I think I'm pretty sure it's connected to the brain, but it might not be. There may be a division there that it maybe jumps to. I don't know. Or maybe parts of it maybe have little segments. I don't know. I just started thinking about it that way. So I'm kind of just like going with the thoughts that come to me. Maybe they're from the next level. But I know the soul is separate from the spirit. I know that from what Tiendo taught. And you can find all their teachings in the Heaven's Gate book, and it's free. And I also give away their teachings in packets digitally. That includes my book. And if you write to Sawyer HG, as in Heaven's Gate, SAWYER HG @yahoo.com. And with that, gosh, you guys, okay, another question, the last one. Illuminati are used in combination of Christianity and occultism. Okay. They are worshiping Saturn, all right, and lesser spirits while praying to God, all right. Maybe we should also combine the two. Check out Book of Enoch. Yes, I have read the Book of Enoch. And absolutely, I don't deny any of that among the human population now. The families, even that are considered to be the Illuminati, being the Bilderbergers and the Rockefellers and the Bushes and the Clintons, and I don't know if the Trumpins are in there or not. The Trumpets, the Trumpets. The Trump ETs. Oh, wow, that's a cool one. I like that. Not the next level ETs, though. The Trump ETs are the part of the, they're not next level members. Because they're not teaching next removal from the human kingdom. They're not teaching separation from human families. I'm not telling anybody to do that. I'm not telling anybody they must do that. I'm not telling anybody when they might feel that's the case. Many people are already of that mindset and already been separated from their families for one reason or another. They may still know them and love them and be associated with them on a regular basis and even be very, very separate from them. So it's not like I'm saying that, not to support our responsibilities to the ones that we bring into this world. We need to, Tiendo taught that those were our responsibilities as human beings. And we do need to attend to them seriously. And I don't know if this is a time that Tiendo would have people leave them behind in order to act like they're serving the next level, because the way that we're serving the next level now, I think, is through the internet primarily, through the midheaven, is the way it was said in Revelation chapter 14, that I think pertained to this time period of the midheaven, and which started with Tiendo, with the Heaven's Gate website. They initiated it. That's the way we're going to do the most service to the next level, standing for Tiendo and sharing their information, disseminating their information to other people. So that's the task that is the overall task, even above separating from the world. So even if somebody is with their family and they have a career and they've got everything going for them, this could become a side issue for them that they just feel like they want to continue with. And if they continue to want to grow in that direction by coming to understand everything they were teaching, Tiendo were, then some of those things will fall away naturally, to where, especially if they ask the next level for help to separate from the world more, even though they can learn to trust that the next level is not going to take that away from them faster than they're prepared for it, like they did with me. I feel like I'm an example of that, to where I'm without my partner of 17 years, who I loved, who left me because I got more and more into Tiendo and the teachings of Tiendo to some degree, but I wasn't denying her any sexuality. But we were having fights about the nature of the kingdom of God and the spirituality of that God is ourselves, and whatever we make it to be, like through the secret video, that we manifest God in ourselves by focusing on what we want, using the spirit world is what they're doing to get things that they want. And that's what the secret is that all you got to do is ask for what you want and focus on it. So you imagine yourself, literally imagining yourself in a certain kind of a car that's a convertible, and it's a sports car, and you're going down the Autobahn at 90 miles an hour, and that to you is freedom, and so you try that, and then you get something like it, okay? And so then you say, okay, look at that, I did that, and now I've got it. But they didn't tell you that the path would be to see where that can manifest in your world. So you go after it, which is the procedure, even from the next level, that you go after what you're aiming for, and then the spirits, or the Luciferian space aliens, fallen angel souls, or the next level to some degree will help you can't help you with that. And if you don't like ask along the way for how to go about manifesting that and checking whether this is right to do or what not right to do, and so let's say you decide to overlook that the organization is going to give you money because your small company can be made into a big company strictly by advertising and using the internet to grow a big company, and then getting a stock offering on it and getting a whole bunch of money generated that can then bring you riches. And so you knew from the beginning that there was something a little bit shady about it, because you were going to be manufacturing that wealth instead of, being the mom and pop that grows to have that wealth because they develop a great product and they sell it for the rest of their life, and it continues to grow in popularity, and so they end up having a great product, but they don't try to bring it public to get investment in it. It's a different score. You're playing the game, which is part of that third horse in the black horse of the Revelation chapter 6, which was the financial crisis, which was the second fall of Babylon. The United States being the new Babylonian Roman kingdom, because that was the direction it came from. Babylon being the Hebrew roots to it, and the Romans being the Egyptian roots to it, that the Hebrews left in that slavery scenario. They were on top at that point. But now the other side is on top. The Hebrew form is on top. The Hebrew, which became the Hebrew, Islamic, Judaic, Christian. Heaven's Gate does it too. Use the spirit world? Yeah. Yes. But we weren't taught to use the spirit world in the group. No. The opposite was true. We were to block all spirits from our attention. Right from the beginning, they said that the spirit world was made up of discarnates, and that we were to block them from using our vehicles and only follow the teachings of Tiendo. So we changed our names so we wouldn't reflect on the past, because a lot of times the past has an association with it of who we are, our identity, whatever that past became, and so that stimulates thoughts of the people that and the relationships we had with the past and the things that we did in the past, and so that we were trying to block all those thoughts from our heads and just focus on the task at hand. And so whether that task was going around the country putting up posters, and then if we were eating, our task was to prepare the food, to think about the statements that Tiendo gave us at first. So we were washing our brains of the old and installing the new. And that's why it was depicted as baptism. Because since we were willing to disconnect from the past, the next level was willing to forgive all our things that we did before that were anti their behavior and ways. So the mistakes we made in the human kingdom that even humans would consider to be mistakes, that even might have put us in prison or could have put us in the military or could have killed somebody, were all forgivable sins. Even though the next level doesn't treat any of those things lightly, and you'd still have to pay a difficult price depending on what you did, because you wouldn't forgive yourself that easily. So you wouldn't believe that the next level forgave you, and so you would think you're not worthy of the truth, And then you would think that, well, if I can't be totally good, even the little tiny things that I'm doing that aren't according to procedure of Tiendo, I've got to beat this vehicle into submission, which Pam Odie gave an example of, and she would get headaches because she must have felt so guilty or something for the little tiny things that she wasn't getting right. I mean, they did encourage us and they did spur us on to take it that seriously when they said to us, say out loud to your partner. This is one of the only times they had us actually say, maybe this is this is maybe the first time of two that I remember where they told us to say something out loud related to, well, there was another time where they gave us that idea. So I would say 3 times. That would help impress the vehicle with making big changes. And the one was that we were given was to think about saying something like, isn't there some way I can grow faster? Tiendo next level. Help me see those ways I can grow more faster to overcome my human condition. Not all those words, but just the first part, what I said the first time, but it came with that idea with it, on the second little phrase that I said. So it's so we were saying it out loud because it's kind of like embarrassing to say that. It was for me to say that with my partner nearby, and you were supposed to say it when your partner was in earshot, but not to your partner. And so I would hear Destody say that, because when that happened, I was partnered with Destody. And he would hear me say that. High Sawyer Kool-Aid. Oh, I guess that's not a name I have to worry about saying, because nobody, I don't think, could have that name legally. I don't like to put names that look like they could be a real human name. I don't like to say them. And I was corrected, actually, in this broadcast for repeating one. So, I don't want it to be on my tape either. If somebody can tell me the exact spot where I say their name, I will try to use my video editor to edit it out. Maybe I can do that with the YouTube software. I don't know. They do have an edit capacity, but I don't know if it's edit the actual video. I don't think it is. But I may be wrong. Well, how many people are going to listen to a 4-hour tape? Yeah, there's a lot to say about the Book of Enoch. All right, well, I'm going to close now because I'm wiped out and it's getting late. I want to get a few hours sleep. I got to get up at 9:30 in the morning. It's 5:20 right now where I am. So I want to get a few hours sleep. And so it's been, I'm glad I had this opportunity to bring some of what I've received from Tiendo to everybody. Thank you for staying with me, for those that do and for those that benefit from it.